Now we're going to go switch rivers up to Murrumbidgee, and talking today is David Goldman. He's been a New South Wales Valuer General for 40 years, and 37 of those years were in the Riverina, and he's always been based in regional centres. His introduction to easements to flood was initially gained on the Tumut River floodplain, where he worked independently to the Water Resources Commission and the Snowy Mountain Authority upon the completion of Blowering Dam. His experience has extended as expert witnesses in matters in the New South Wales Land and Environment Court, tribunals and land board hearings. He's a professional and he knows what he's talking about. David Goldman.
Thank you, Tom. I've been retired for 10 years. I used to know what I was talking about, but anyway, we'll see how we go. It's just very interesting to hear the words of Uncle Colin over here this morning, and you can pick up the emotion in his voice of his attachment to his land. My wife and sister-in-law have run the family farm, and which the family has had for 160 odd years at Colin Gully on the river, and they may well be the last people there because they can't live with the crap they've got to do now. This lip here was on a slide earlier on. It has hit onto our grazing and cut it back by 2/3. Quite significant when you're trying to be viable, and yet they've done it for 160 years there. We can't do it anymore. We used to be able to run 150 odd cows down there. We're back to 40 something odd at the moment. Anyway, the Mid-Murrumbidgee group does not require environmental watering based on. We thought we'd be like the MDBA. We thought we'd be, adaptive with our science and our thinking. So we looked at some Wagga City Council flood records that went back to 1844. And looking at those, pre the construction of Burrinjuck Dam, when it started to hold water, and the flood height at Wagga then was classed as 8.23 metres, there was a flood there was one flood of at least that 8.23 or higher every 2.66 years. I know it's simplistic to look at it that way, but it's factual. Post Burrinjuck and Blowering dams, for example, we've had an 8.23 metre flood once in every 1.61 years. Now we looked at the reference books used by the MDBA that indicate at what stage the environmental sites get water along the Mid-Murrumbidgee area, and so we've concluded there that the Mid-Murrumbidgee doesn't need environmental watering when they get this other instance over the natural floods, and I think natural floods are a little bit different to environment. We get a piggyback flood at Colin Gully, for example, and it's got it's been modelled on the farm at one point there where the floodplain is 6 kilometres wide. It's been modelled at 0.47 metres per second, and it's trying to come this way and get through this timber. Even at that, quite a significant force in the water. And we wonder why the banks on the creek are eroding away. Anyway, I better keep going here. With the Lipia, the CSIRO issued a report in 2012 before their funding got pulled in 2013. That Lipia is causing $1.8 billion worth of damage to the environment each year in 2003 dollars. And at the same time, the grazing industry was copping hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in damage. I mentioned our reduced stocking rate. This lip year here has covered our creek country of about 400 hectares or 1,000 acres. It's invaded 90% of it and increasing. So, look, we've had impacts in that area along there of where there's emotional stress with people. There's been divorces. There's been, unfortunately, suicide. Other things like those have happened simply because people's lives are turned upside down by the thought of what has happened and what it might be in the future. I spoke to a chap on the Tumut River only last week, and he said, David, you know, my father negotiated the 9,500 restriction on the Tumut River for a Tumut. I said, yes, I do. And he said, Dad wanted the Tumut River changed to canal because that's what it is. The great meanders that used to be in this floodplain across here at Tumut, he said, you know, I know you know, he said, the river has come such speed and cut those meanders off and just goes straight down in there to a large degree. We said no easements at Colin Gully, no easements to flood. And from that point on, we have noticed that the MDBA have walked away from us. We don't even know, there was talk of a business case, we never saw it. It's been presented, I believe, and here we are out on the limb somewhere. Well, come just terms legislation, if they want to go that way, they will find things a little difficult to deal with because, and with having no defined airspaces in the dams these days, very often you'll end up like a Wivenhoe Dam in Queensland a few years ago with uncontrolled water. Now, with just terms legislation, there's about 6 essential headers there of compensation which have to be addressed. And when we had a consultant out there from the MDBA, I asked him if he had addressed these, had no knowledge of them. People who have a business on the farm, you know, which is a critical part of it, are entitled to compensation for damage to that business, not just for physical damage to the farm infrastructure or for cattle or something like that. They are entitled to a business compensation as well. We engaged our own farm business consultant, came down to Wagga at Colin Gully actually, viewed the properties, spoke to people, wrote the report up. The MDBA were going to pay for that report, offered to, but once they got the report, there was no funds forthcoming. Thank you.